Welcome to Culture, Worldview, and Origins. We're Tim and Holly Nyquist. We're on the topic of critical thinking skills in science. This is Chapter 6. We're going over knowledge and wisdom, session number 3. Critical thinking and the half-life of knowledge. Kind of an interesting topic. It's kind of like, well, I've heard about the half-life of the atomic rates, how they decompose, how different elements decompose into another element, or the half-life of it, how it decomposes half of its substance into another substance. What is that half-life? And then I came across this term, critical thinking, the half-life of knowledge, that knowledge today is measured in a half-life. It's kind of like, what do you mean by that? Well, in 1963, the Austrian-American economist Fritz Machlup coined the phrase the half-life of knowledge. In 1963, he coined the half-life of knowledge. It describes the amount of time it takes for known facts to be superseded by later research and made obsolete. Those facts could be made obsolete or they could be proven false. The term half-life describes the time it takes for a substance to decline by a half. So in other words, the knowledge that we're gaining today, and we're applying scientific method as the only method to gain reliable knowledge. And now we're faced with the fact that that reliable knowledge that is gained through the scientific method and through science has a half-life, that it becomes obsolete or proven false within so many years. How many years is it? I mean, how much of the facts that we're learning in this class, or we're learning anywhere, in 50 years, or how many years, will be obsolete or won't be true? I can say one thing is that God's Word never changes, and God's Word never stops being true. So in other words, when we look to a human source of reliable knowledge, one, it's not permanent. One, it could be proven false or rendered obsolete in a short amount of time. By 1991, the half-life decay of engineering knowledge was estimated to be 5 years. A decade later, it was 2.5 years, and much shorter if the engineer was working in information technology. So for all those students that studied engineering and all the technical aspects of it, their knowledge within 5 years was obsolete. And that's what a lot of companies have started doing because of the high production of new knowledge, in that the graduates that are graduating now are far superior, or have more knowledge, more, how would you say it? More true knowledge, or more knowledge that has not been superseded yet. And so employers employ the recent graduates. But what do you do then with the engineers or whoever after 10 years? They're rendered almost obsolete because of their knowledge base has been half-lifed and has decayed, and it is no longer applicable. It is no longer maybe even true. So that's kind of an unsettling thing about knowledge, about knowledge produced by the scientific method, is that it's knowledge that is passing. It's knowledge that is not forever. It's not knowledge that's true. True for me and true for future generations and true for past generations. It's just true for today and it's true for this moment. But tomorrow it may not be true. It's kind of like, how can we live with that? March 2017, Christine Colasino wrote for Harvard Medical School News that today the half-life of medical knowledge is currently about 18 to 24 months. And it is projected that in about 4 years, that half-life will be only 73 days. What about all that hard work? A medical student going through manual after manual, tests after tests, memorizing great quantities of information, and now they're saying that the half-life could be 73 days. That this is, I mean, what incentive, what keeps somebody pouring so much work into it when it's going to be obsolete? It's going to be either rendered obsolete or untrue. And I know in my generation we've practiced several things that today in the medical field would say, no, that is not even good for you to do that. And years ago, you can list a number of practices medically that are no longer approved. Not only been superseded, there have been a lot of them superseded, but there's others that they were false. They would kill you if you actually did these things medically, which they did, like bloodletting and different things in the 1800s. Medical knowledge. Medical knowledge. What is medical knowledge for? What's it about? And it's kind of like, well, medical knowledge, I would think, is about living better and longer. I don't know why. Why would we produce more medical knowledge if it wasn't to improve our health or our longevity or the quality of life? Well, I started looking into things a little bit. And so I looked up the male life expectancy. In other words, how long is a male expected to live today? And so I was kind of interested in it because I qualify as one of those. In 2022, in the USA, the male life expectancy was 77.43 years. Okay? In Canada, that same year, the male expectancy of life was 81.3. And in the United Kingdom, it was 82.06. So it's kind of like, okay, well, who is the producer of a lot or the most advancement in medical knowledge? If we're producing medical knowledge at such a rate, how is that affecting our health? How is that affecting our longevity and how we and so the USA in these three countries is ranked third out of these three. In 2010, the same countries were ranked, USA, and ranked at 78.5 years. So in other words, 12 years later, we have lost a year. It's kind of like, well, what happened to all this medical knowledge that was superseded and that we have to keep learning new knowledge, and we keep going to the doctors and getting more and newer medication, and yet we've actually lost a year. And some would say, well, yeah, but you're looking at what happened in between. You got COVID, you've got a lot of different maybe influences up here, but these countries experience the same influences, experience the same COVID, so it's kind of like, what's happening here? And so in 2010, life expectancy of the USA dropped a year. In Canada, it was almost the same. It maintained from 2010 to 2022. You got 81.3 in 2022, and you have 81.32 in 2010. So Canada has maintained, again, with all the advancements that we have in the medical field in 12 years of how much medical knowledge has gone obsolete, we have Canada that has maintained the same. United Kingdom is the only one that has improved 2 years of their life expectancy. So it's kind of like, okay, so what is all this knowledge doing? What is forcing us to change the way we do things, or change doctors to continually keep updated in how to treat different ailments? Why isn't it producing better results? Like I said, I would imagine that the medical field and the advancement in knowledge and in medically would have the target of improving our existence, our health, and our longevity. But yet in these two parallels, it shows it hasn't. I think, well, maybe that's just a fluke. Why do you pick those three countries to compare us to? And it's kind of like, well, USA is ranked number 48 out of the world. Out of all the nations of the world, we're ranked 48th in longevity, in life expectancy. So it's kind of like we're not even in the top 10. We're not top 20. We're not in the top 30. We're in the bottom 40. And it's kind of like, well, with all of the knowledge that we have and of all the money and resources that we have, why aren't we doing better than that? Why aren't we up in the top 10? What do those countries know that we don't, that affects health more than maybe just the scientific method? So just something to think about is that if we have to continually update ourselves on information, new information that's out, and the medical field is supposed to be changing maybe up to every 17 months, but yet what is that producing? What is that new knowledge doing for us or to us? Is it improving our quality of life, or what is that knowledge for? Despite frequent breakthroughs in medicine and public health, life expectancy at birth in the world's longest living populations has increased only an average of 6.5 years since 1990. When it started increasing life expectancy by 6 years in the 1990, they were excited. The doctors, the research scientists were excited because they were shooting for 100. They were thinking that we're going to get the population up to 100 years. The thing is that from 1990 on, they did increase, but then it's like they hit a ceiling. And now we have not gone above that ceiling. The rate of improvement falls far short of some scientists' expectations that life expectancy would increase at an accelerated pace in this century, and that most people born today will live past 100 years. So somehow the knowledge that we have gained by research and books and etc. has not made a profound difference in our health and in our general life expectancy. And so it's kind of like, okay, what's missing? Is there something missing in this search for knowledge that that scientific method is not allowing in, or does not detect, or does not? We should now shift our focus to efforts that slow aging and extend health span. Health span is a relatively new metric that measures the number of years a person is healthy, not just alive. That is a big difference too, is that if we're injecting people with medication just to keep them alive, but yet their quality of life is not good, then we have done a disservice. We are just selling medications, and we are not providing then a real quality of life. And that's what we see in a lot of these homes, retirement homes, is that the quality of life is fairly shallow, and that they're kept alive. They have the medications and the sicknesses are controlled, and they're living longer, but they might be outliving even their mind. And so that's a big thing, that's facing us today is the dementia or the Alzheimer's, and that what good is it to have a healthy body and not a mind, or have a good mind and a sick body? And it's kind of like, well, we've advanced so much in medical knowledge, we should be able to advance in those areas. Naomi Oreskes, a historian and defender of science, wrote in her 2019 book, Why Trust Science? She wrote that the history of science shows that scientific truths are perishable, and the contributions of science cannot be viewed as permanent. Okay, so science is the only source of reliable knowledge. That's what some say. And the scientific method is the only method that produces reliable knowledge. And yet it's knowledge that's perishable. And they said scientific truths. To me, that sounds kind of contradictory, or contradiction of terms. How do you have a truth that's perishable? Then it's not a truth. Then it's something that was true at the moment, but was not really true, not on the long run. So it was not something that was an eternal truth. It was a temporal truth. And that's basically the knowledge that we get out of human reasoning, is a temporal truth that may not even be truth, but it is temporal. Anyway, it's just kind of like, well, what are we doing? Why pursue knowledge? Why pursue education? Why pursue degrees when the information learned and mastered is perishable and may not even equip us to last a lifetime in the profession that we're studying to be? The history of science shows that scientific truths are perishable, and the contributions of science cannot be viewed as permanent. We go back to that quote, is that science is the only method that results in the acquisition of reliable knowledge. Reliable knowledge that has a half-life, that in the medical field is anywhere from 17 months to 3 years. In the engineering field, I don't know what it's at, maybe 4 to 5 years. And that is our hope. That is what we base it on, is the scientific method is our basis of reliable knowledge. And yet that reliable knowledge is perishable and is only good for a few moments. Then it becomes non-knowledge. Then it becomes maybe even non-truth. So what are we basing our search for reliable knowledge on? And right now we're looking at, okay, the Western critical thinking is to produce and protect knowledge. But if the knowledge is only good for a certain span of time, then what does that generate? Does that generate any hope? Does that generate security? Does that generate? And it's kind of like, for me, no, it would not. So that is why maybe I am not a Western-bound scientific method generator of truth, because it's not truth. It's justified belief, but that belief that's justified may only last, and it has an expiration date, and it has a half-life. That's kind of, don't end on a downer, but it's just kind of like, that is what humanism is about, is that there's no certainty. There is no anchor. There is nothing. And that is what, God's word is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that is an anchor that I can hold on to, because that is my source of reliable knowledge, and a source that never changes, a source that human reasoning will never justify, but it's always there. And it has been there since the beginning, and it is still there for us today. Thanks again for joining me. This is session number 3, and on knowledge and wisdom, and where it comes from. We're Tim and Holly. If you want to communicate with us, you can through the addresses that are on the board. Thank you again.